Hi, welcome to Wild Wednesday. I'm Susan and I'm one of the naturalists here at the Nature Center. And I'm also kind of a bird nerd. I like to look at birds and listen to birds. Have you been outside recently and heard all of the bird calls in the morning, all of the birds singing? Hear one right now. There. So when birds call or birds sing, one of the things that they're doing is they're actually talking to each other. And birds have two different types of sounds generally they make. One is called a song, which you hear a lot during the spring, like right now. And it's usually longer and more complicated. And then the other thing is what they call a call. And sometimes that's just those little cheeps, cheeps, little bitty short things that they use. Songs are something that birds use for mating, for courtship, for territory. So the males and the females are going to fly into their areas in the spring and say, hey, this is my area, and by the way, I'm looking for a date. And that's what they're going to use those longer songs for. Bird calls are ways that they kind of go, hey, I'm here. Who's there? Where's the rest of my flock? Are you here? Wait, there's a person. Let's get all set. So they use those calls as an alarm thing or as in a way to find out who in their flock is still around. So one of the ways that people who look at birds identify birds, actually one of the big ways, is to learn to identify them by call. Because a lot of times, especially after the trees have leafed out, it's really hard to see birds. And if they're not lit just right, you can't see those colors and what we call those field markings. So you miss about half the birds that are out there if you can't identify them by call. So let's listen right now and hear who we hear. Now, it's hard because you think, well, they all sound alike to me. But they really don't. So everybody knows what a robin looks like, an American robin. An American robin has a song that kind of goes, cheerio, 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 cheerio. There's another bird called a black-headed grosbeak that's here this time of year. And it has a very similar call to a robin, except it kind of sounds like, I call it a robin who's had some music lessons. And so it's a little more complicated. So they do that cheerio, cheerio, and then they add a bunch of warbly stuff after it. So if you hear something that goes like a robin, cheerio, 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 and then all of a sudden gets really complicated, you probably have a black-headed grosbeak nearby. Now over here, we've been hearing, there we hear it. You hear that call that's a lot of cascading notes. That's actually what we call a yellow warbler. And a lot of warblers, if you want to start breaking down songs and trying to categorize your birds, your warblers actually do have a cascading call. And then a yellow warbler, we go, sweet, 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 so sweet. And it's like, beep, 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 beep. And you can hear it right now. There he goes. So a lot of times a warbler will have a cascading call, and that'll help you narrow it down. If you're out near a marsh, you might hear a wren. Wrens have little buzzy calls, so zzz, kind of buzzy type of call. And so once you start trying to categorize these birds and say, okay, it sounds kind of like a warbly thing, and it sounds like a cascading set of notes, maybe what I'm finding is a yellow warbler. There are a lot of apps out there you can put on your phone that'll tell you what kinds of bird calls there are. There's a place called the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. You can go to their website, allaboutbirds.org, and that will actually play calls for you, and you can kind of test what you've heard against what the actual bird call is. The last bird I'm going to talk about is called the black-capped chickadee. I haven't heard any of these guys this morning, but they actually say their own name. They go chickadee-dee-dee, and a lot of times I think you've probably heard of black-capped chickadee. But what you don't realize is that they also have a call that is just two notes, like my tree or Phoebe, and it's two little notes together, and that is actually a black-capped chickadee talking to another black-capped chickadee saying, hey, who's around here? Who's here? So when you start listening to bird calls, try to figure out whether first of all, whether you've got a call, something short and not so complicated, or a song, something with a lot more notes to it, and then try to see whether it sounds like something you've heard before, like a robin, which I just heard. You hearing now? They never play on cue. That yellow warbler's really going though. So listen to it, see if you can figure out whether you've got a song or a call, and that'll help you figure out who's in your yard.